Jess, thank you so much for being with me today. How are you?
I am fantastic. Good morning, Leon. How are you?
I'm doing really well as well. I
Excellent.
got out for a little walk this morning, got some fresh
Good.
air and some sunshine. For those watching this, in the future, everyone is currently on lockdown. How's your lockdown been?
Um, you know, it's it's had its ups and downs for sure.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, since the school has been closed, that has kind of taken a good chunk of my day
Right.
and opened it wide, wide open because I'd been spending a lot of time up there. And so, but on a on a happier note, if you can call it that, it's given me some time to, be a little bit creative. And so I've been full on craft mode, um, almost to the tune of frantic.
Oh, wow.
Just like, let's just get stuff done. I need to be productive. I need
Yeah.
to not
Yeah.
just sit around.
Yeah.
So yeah, the knitting needles are on fire,
Oh, wow.
and the oven has been churning out lots of carbs. So
Amazing. Okay,
yeah,
so you're keeping busy. That sounds good.
I am. I'm trying anyway, or else the way my brain works, I could go downhill very quickly.
Yeah, I hear
So.
you. All right. All right. So, for those who may have never been to your class, or those who may watch this who've never even been to Studio 540, give us a quick intro to your journey in Jiu Jitsu. What year did you start training? What belt are you now?
Oof.
And what is your lineage?
Okay, well, I believe that I began jujitsu in 2007.
Hmm.
It was when we lived in Pocatello, Idaho. My husband John was in grad school, and I was finishing up my undergrad. And he started jujitsu with one of his, classmates, and because he wanted to get rid of some extra poundage.
All right.
Like I said, the oven turns out carbs at my house on the reg. Um, so what happens when John finds something that he loves, and this is really endearing quality, but it can get a little bit frustrating for me sometimes, is that he goes full on, he dives in.
Hmm.
And he fell in love with jujitsu, and then I didn't see him very much. And so he's like,
A
well, I guess
Jiu-Jitsu
you're going to
widow.
have to start training. And I was like, well, okay, fine. And for class I went to, I learned an armbar from Mount, and I was done. I was like, all right, I could do that. And I have never stopped training since. So
What year did you get your black belt?
yeah, I got my black belt in 2015.
Hmm.
So it was relatively quick, but in that interim, we trained a whole lot. We ended up inheriting a school from our instructor.
Hmm.
And so we had run a school for about 5 years
Wow.
before we got our black belts.
Hmm.
So we've been teaching and training pretty much, 5, 6, 7 days a week
Yeah.
for, a long time.
Yeah.
So
And tell us about your
yeah.
lineage.
Um, so I started with a gentleman named Jared Emfield in Idaho Falls. He was, funny enough, Idaho Jiu Jitsu was very, very different than San Diego,
Oh,
where our
how so?
instructor was just barely a purple belt when I
Ah.
started.
Hmm.
And he had been running a school for several years as a
Yeah.
blue belt. So that's, I mean, just because of proximity to
Hmm.
jujitsu and that sort of thing. But he came up through the Pedro Sauer Association, had trained with Pedro when he was going to school in Utah. And so we worked with him as much as we could. We went down to Salt Lake, and the closest black belt that we were, that we could find was in Salt Lake. It was they were Pedro's black belts.
Hmm.
So 150 miles away.
Hmm.
So if we wanted to, get what Studio 540 gets on the regular, we would have to travel, several hours to get there.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so we went all the way through, black belt with the Pedro Sauer Association,
Mm-hmm.
and with Jared. I think that we are very, very fortunate to have been able to go through on that path. It really, really worked for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody does not know who Pedro is, he is a 9th degree coral belt under Aleo and Hickson. There's a little bit of argument as to who exactly gave him his belt. Aleo says, no, it was me. Hickson says, no, it was me. I think it was a collaborative effort. I mean, to have those two argue over you, must not be too bad.
I wouldn't be complaining.
And Jared was a phenomenal instructor. He was is a teacher by trade.
Great.
So, being able to learn from somebody that was such a good teacher, and Pedro himself is a fantastic instructor.
Yeah.
And so I think that really set us on the path to becoming instructors pretty quickly and, easily.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I want to do a little mental exercise. I want you to think about some of the people who you train with, maybe some of your favorite training partners here or elsewhere. And if we put them together in a room and said, all right, you guys, let's describe Jess's jiu-jitsu. Let's find some characteristics of her jiu-jitsu. What's her claim to fame? Like, let's all talk about that. What do you think they would say?
I think that they would probably say that I have a pretty decent, defensive game. I've spent a lot of time on the defense, on the bottom, as being a smaller person. So I have been able to develop that pretty well. But I think pretty much what people would say is that I love to gather arms.
Yes.
That's, I don't know. From that first day, I just decided that that's what I really enjoy doing. Some people love chokes. I love the arms. So I tend to go for that pretty consistently. So,
I can verify, if I were one of those people in the room, I can verify that pretty much every time that we've trained together, I think it's just been arm bars from every different angle that you can think of. So, and I would also add to that I would say that your jiu-jitsu is a very fundamental jiu-jitsu. So there's no fancy flashy stuff. There's no, inverted kind of really interesting kind of takes on moves. It's very fundamental. And I feel like if you look at, Hickson's game or Eliu's game, that DNA is in your game. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that is definitely what people would notice about me is that I really strive to have that really clean, simple jiu-jitsu, so that I don't have to rely on trying to think of 14 steps ahead.
Sure.
I can think of 14 moves as opposed to like, where do I put my hand and turn here and do? I don't get time for that.
simple, clean, effective, high, meaning like high percentage types of techniques. I would also say that both you and John, your husband, have a very I don't want to say slow, because it's not like a slow jujitsu. I feel like it's a systematic jujitsu where it's not like that's certainly not like spazzy and like what you see on the IBJJF highlights. It's something where it's very calm and controlled. And yet I feel like as one of your training partners, I feel like, okay, the ratchet just tightened down a little bit more, just a little bit more. Oh, I'm in trouble. Like it's just inch by inch. And so I think that's a big part of your jiu-jitsu as well.
I think so too. That is something that I work really hard on, because again, because I am smaller and I normally train with bigger people, I can't rely on, big movements and big, explosions to be
Mm-hmm.
effective for me.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to, a ratchet is a very good way of thinking of it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like inch by inch by
Yeah.
inch, moving,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to lose too much ground.
Sure.
If
Mm-hmm.
if I go too far too soon, then if it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
then I might end up going way further back than I
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Do you remember your
I
first day
always
on the mat?
oh gosh, yes, I do. We were training at the time. It was a pretty new school, and he was sharing space with a gymnastics academy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was on a really, really crazy springy mat,
Oh,
like
wow.
for people to do like the floor exercise so they could jump
Right.
and everything. So jumping jacks for warm-ups were awesome because you were flying in the air with these springy floors. But I came in much like I think a lot of women, I brought a friend,
Mm-hmm.
safety in numbers,
Smart.
because didn't really know what I was. All I had really gotten to know about jujitsu was, hey, let me show you something in the
Mm.
living room when my
Right. Yeah.
husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought a friend and she and I trained. And yeah, like I said, I learned an armbar from mount. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, I can do this? Like, this is what we do, is we can like break people's arms? And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm in.
Did that friend stay with you? Like, was it her first day also?
It was her first day. And she did end up training, off and on for, I don't know, a few months, but she
Okay.
petered out like,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people do.
Sure.
Um, but it was really good to have that, like newbie buddy,
Yeah, of course.
because
Yeah.
that's always one of those things where it's like, well, I'm the brand new person, everybody else has been doing this, so I don't want to be
Yeah.
the only person that doesn't know anything, so I'll just
Sure.
bring you because you don't know anything either. Right.
Okay.
So we
So I
can be
want to know,
spazzes together.
yes. So I want to know, like, what was your experience before jujitsu? Like, what kind of athletics did you do before?
Okay, I would not ever say that before I started jujitsu that I was ever really an athlete.
Okay.
Um, so okay, a little bit about me. My I grew up with one sister.
Mm-hmm.
My dad didn't have any boys, so I kind of ended up being the boy. So I was pretty rough and tumble, like digging in the dirt and that sort of thing. I did try my hand at some sports like softball, and I played like 3 games of soccer when I was a little kid. But I
Mm-hmm.
played softball, ran some track, played some volleyball like in middle school and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But my dad was a wrestler, and
Oh,
he coached for years, like
okay.
my whole life.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been around wrestling always.
Okay.
This is a goofy, weird thing about me, but I love the smell of a wrestling room.
Really?
That nasty, sweaty, humid. I love it because I equate
Mm-hmm.
that with my dad.
Well, certainly
So
that's one of the really fascinating things about humans is that smell can
yeah,
trigger a memory. So it
for
puts you
sure.
back in that place where you grew up as a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, so you grew up around wrestling and that's
Yes.
interesting because
Would
what I wanted to know.
go to practice. I would
Uh-huh.
ride the bus with the boys when that was, because this was before, like people would let me just jump on a bus with a bunch of
Sure.
high school boys,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was my deal. I was on the mat. I would sit next to my dad during matches whenever
Hmm.
they would let me. I mean, I loved it. That was our deal. So
So you mentioned how quick it was for you to get a black belt. Now I'm kind of putting the pieces together. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I
okay,
feel like what the big picture here is that you internalized a lot of that. I can't imagine, like my dad was a truck driver. So when I was
right,
riding in the vehicle with my dad, he was pointing out all the things that were that people were doing wrong on the road.
Right.
I would
Okay.
imagine that your dad probably leaned over to you and said, oh, he shouldn't have done that. Oh, he should. And so there's kind of this constant like programming of what grappling looked like, so that once you finally got on the mat, I feel like you were able to
Yeah.
tap into some reserves there.
Maybe, and just the fact that I was around it so much,
Right.
I was watching those guys and, I would play, I did one time ask if I could wrestle and he
Mm-hmm.
said no.
Really?
Looking back, I
Mm,
understand why.
sure.
Even just from being a lady in a somewhat male dominated sport right now, I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of understand. He's like, yeah, no.
Right.
Um, I don't think it had anything to do with me personally or that. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's just like, I don't want you to have to deal with that.
Got it.
So I never pushed him, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but no, yeah, I think that's just, and I think that's why jujitsu speaks to me so much, is just
Mm-hmm.
because of, that was my childhood, was just being around, the rest. They were all my babysitters, like
Yeah.
my dad and mom would go out to dinner. The heavyweight would come over and watch us.
That's so cool. That's amazing.
So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so at some point when you started training jujitsu, something clicked in your brain where you're like, I want to do this. Like you went originally because your husband was missing and you want to see your
right.
husband. So,
For sure.
there's like, that was kind of the first motivation. Where do you think you were in the belt process when you decided this is for me and this is what I want to do for myself, regardless of whether or not John continues to train?
I would probably say that happened when I was, I don't know, like mid blue belt,
Okay.
where it was just like, okay, yeah, I can do this regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that was probably when I would go to class, even if John didn't go,
Yeah.
if he
Yeah.
had to go study or something, I'm like, fine, I'm going to go to class, you know? Um, because normally it was just a thing that we did together. Like
Mm-hmm.
he would go on his own if I didn't feel like going, but it was
Mm-hmm.
not the other way around ever.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, no, I think, probably, yeah, around mid blue belt, where I was just like, okay, I can
Mm-hmm.
do this, this is a thing that I can do by myself too. But I
Mm-hmm.
really loved and that's where, you get to where you can kind of like hang with certain people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not super brand new. And so now they're not taking it easy on you per se,
Mm,
but you're still surviving. And
right.
so it's like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like there's a puzzle to be solved and I can, how do I make this work? And, I'm having some successes with this, where
Mm-hmm.
can we go with it?
Yeah.
So,
I love the puzzle analogy, and I've always thought about my own jujitsu in terms of like a jigsaw puzzle, where every time I get on the mat, somebody gives me another piece of the puzzle, right?
right.
Like all I
Yeah.
started with was this empty table, and I don't
Right.
have the box. I don't know what the final result looks
It's
like.
true.
But every time I get on the mat, somebody gives me another piece of that puzzle. And then I can put it on the table. And the more I go to class, the more I learn, the more pieces I
Mm-hmm.
have. And I think for me, my goal is that, once I kind of get, 10, 15 years down the road, that I just have an idea of what the picture is. Like, I'm
Right.
not even asking to have it completed, right? Because that's kind of
Right.
jujitsu. You kind of
Right.
never have the final solution, the final,
Yeah.
you
You can,
know.
the puzzle just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's a yes, it
There's no
does.
edges.
Yeah, exactly. No edge pieces here. This is
There's
a
no
tough
edge
one.
pieces.
So I'm wondering, what was your, okay, white, blue, purple, brown, black. What was your favorite belt promotion?
Oh, promotion. Oh, to get to, you know, getting to brown.
Mm-hmm.
That was significant
Mm.
to me.
Why was that?
It was just, and especially from where we were, like I didn't see other women
Mm-hmm.
very often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I did, they were always like brand new. They'd come, they'd leave. Um, every once in a while you might see a blue belt when we went down to Utah. When I hit purple belt, that was like, oh, people would look at me and they'd be like, oh my gosh, a female purple belt, which was really kind of strange. I was like, well, I'm just a purple belt. I mean, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But when I got my brown belt, because I guess it was just one of those things where I never really thought that I would get all the way to black belt.
Really?
Honestly, I was just like, that's just so far away. And maybe it was because we didn't see many,
Sure.
as we were growing up through jiu-jitsu, because our instructor, I got to see my instructor get his black belt, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, oh yeah, well, when I get my brown belt, because that seemed somewhat achievable. I mean, it was kind of in the horizon, but yeah, for a long time, black belt was like, it probably won't ever happen. So whatever.
Yeah.
Honestly, but yeah, I hit my brown belt, and I remember the day that I got my brown belt, one of our friends of ours, his name was Will Bernalis. He's one of Pedro's black belts down in Salt Lake. We're not super close, but we knew each other, we'd see each other and would recognize each other, and so acquaintance maybe. And he put his arm around me and he was just like, dang, Jess, that is so awesome. Like, not many gals get to where you're at right now. And I was just like, you're right.
Yeah.
They don't, and seriously, I'm sure you've seen the infographic of like how many people quit by each belt,
Right.
and how many people actually get to, a brown or a black belt. And, obviously with women, it's significantly less.
Sure.
And
you were like a mythical figure at that point. At least for your region, right? Like for your region,
it's
not only were
true,
brown belts rare, but a female brown belt was even more
absolutely
rare.
Absolutely. So yeah, and it always kind of keeps me in check to just realize that, like, I have to remember how rare this is, but also, like, you're also just not special. You're special, but you're keep it down.
You're special, but you're not special.
But you're not that special. No, but it was very humbling for Will to say that. And, I think it really put things into a huge perspective for me.
Yeah. I would imagine that you had some tough moments to power through. Jiu-jitsu being male dominated, and I can imagine a scenario where you might have maybe a cocky blue belt comes in to the gym and he's got to train with a female brown belt. How did you navigate those tough moments?
Gosh, I'm an incredibly emotional person anyway, so I will tell you that I will be on the verge at many times during this conversation with you today.
That's perfectly welcome and okay.
I have my tissue. But yeah, there were years where every single day I would have to cry on the way home.
Wow.
Just out of like frustration or pain or self-doubt. And I honestly would not be training jiu-jitsu if I did not have John. That poor guy deserves a second black belt just for talking me off of the edge every single day.
Would you say there were moments where you thought about giving it up?
Oh, many. And there were times where John was like, fine, just quit. I'm like, yeah, I should just stop this. This is ridiculous.
Wow.
And then the next day I'd be like, pick up your gi, let's go.
It's too addicting.
Peer pressure is a bitch.
Peer pressure, but there is a real addictive element to this sport that we're in.
It's true. It really is. But yeah, I mean, I play the victim a lot in the car on the way home, and I whine a lot. But you know, hopefully, it doesn't come off this way. But you know, like it has been a long road, and I know that my road has probably not even been nearly as bumpy as other ladies. You know, you think about Letitia down in Brazil. Her road was bumpy. It was rocky, I'm sure. But no, it was really difficult, you know, like you say, you know, having, you know, some new guy come in and like find that upper belt, you know. They'll come in and, you know that they want to tap a black belt. So they're going to pick me because they're going to come home from wherever they were visiting and say, oh man, I went to Studio 540 and man, I tapped out this black belt.
Yes.
They're not going to say her name or it's to her or that she weighed 80 pounds less than me. But I'm going to say, oh man, I just handled this black belt. Unfortunately, there are people out there that are like that. Navigating around that has become a bit of an art form. I've had to give myself some rules, you know, like I have to watch the person roll first. Before I will even, you know, consider rolling with them. Most of the time, you know, if it's somebody that I don't know, I will make sure that somebody that I do know, namely John, rolls with them first. And, you know, or, you know, now at Studio 540, I've got Andre, I've got Jake, I've got Aaron, and I know that those guys are going to take care of me, and they'll look at me and say, yep, or they'll say, yeah, probably not this time. Jess. You know, because that's what we do. We look out for each other. So
you bring up this is a really interesting topic. This is kind of the good and the bad. I think you're kind of demonstrating, you know, some of the beautiful aspects of jiu-jitsu, the community and how we look out for each other. And then the bad, which is also where the ego gets involved, and the ego and the ego and the competitive spirit. And that selfish nature comes out in people, where if, you know, that's actually a really volatile mix of ego, competition, and being selfish in jiu-jitsu, right? So I'm thinking about that kind of stereotypical blue belt who might be looking to test themselves and to prove themselves. You know, that's a bad side of jiu-jitsu because people can get hurt. Yes, you may be able to prove that you can, you know, tap somebody, but training is different than a competition, right? I mean, would you agree with that? Like, absolutely. You know, in training, while I may be wanting to demonstrate to my instructors my skill level, there's a level of respect for my training partners, whether I'm training with one of my instructors or with, you know, another purple belt like myself or something. So even if I felt like, you know, man, I'm really eager to get that next belt, I would never want to sacrifice a training partner to do so. You know what I mean? And so, so it's interesting how you bring this up, because you're kind of demonstrating how there's this beautiful side of jiu-jitsu as a community, and then there's this other side that's like a little like we got to deal with it.
I mean, and that's everything, you know. But no, you know, the fact that I have people that I can rely on to, you know, to trust and watch out for me, you know, and, you know, I have made it incredibly clear that I try and watch out for everybody else by, you know, letting people know you're probably rolling a little bit hard right now. Maybe you should bring it down a notch. You know, and you know, that's where the nickname Mama Bear came from the beginning, was just a little tongue in cheek. Hey now, Mama Bear, maybe you should, you know, like, no. I think everybody should probably just, you know, have somebody to, you know, remind them that this is not the ADCCs. This is not the worlds. We're just here to train. You know, and you know, the person that you're rolling with is also a person, and they need to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, and if you want them to train with you the next time you're here, then maybe we should, you know, like take a step back.
Yes.
Breathe a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about your jujitsu being one that's maybe what we might be able to classify as like more fundamental. So we talked about it being clean, effective, high percentage, slow and methodical. What would you say? Like, so those are like what are the characteristics, but
Right.
underneath all of that, there's got to be some kind of core philosophy to your jujitsu. So what is your core philosophy, and what do you think about when you approach jujitsu in general?
I, you know, I think, every day is a little bit different, but
Mm,
as a whole, I think what I am trying to achieve is to just be able to um, make it even just appear effortless,
mm,
you
mm-hmm,
know? Um, I think, and then I think that comes from where we came from with the Pedro Sauer Association. If you ever watch anything, with Pedro, his jujitsu just looks like he's not even trying.
mm,
It's so clean and it's so pretty.
mm-hmm,
But again, it is so simple.
mm-hmm,
And he smiles the entire time.
mm.
Like he is having so much fun.
Yeah.
Um, because he's having this conversation with another person. And it's not, I'm smiling because I'm going to
I
kick
love
your
that.
ass. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm smiling because I'm giving you something, you're giving me something back, and we're working together. And, every once in a while, even if he catches you, he goes, oh, but it's not like in a cocky way. It's,
Right.
I'm just having so much fun sharing this with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I really would love my jujitsu to be.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not smiling, we have those days where we
Yeah.
don't smile.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love for that to be, that's kind of where I want that to go, is
Mm-hmm.
to, I'm not looking for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That's just completely impossible. Continuing to improve, and then just always making it about sharing
Mm-hmm.
instead of just take. I want, like, I'm going to give you something, you're going to give me something back. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that about
Mm-hmm.
jujitsu. And I
Yeah.
want to make sure that, that is what I'm shooting for, is to get that more into my game. You bring up selfishness, and there are times where I absolutely train selfishly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm, say, working on something, or I'm working through something, right? But yeah, I love it when I'm able to have those roles with people where we're just smiling, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're working hard, but we're just having a good old time,
Yeah.
because it's all about what we're doing together.
Sure. Yeah.
And
One thing I've
hopefully that
observed.
doesn't sound too cheesy, but I mean, since I am not a competitor, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a fighter, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I do for fun. This is what I
Yeah.
do,
Right.
for my sanity.
Yeah.
I want it to be a happy thing as
Yeah.
opposed to work.
Yeah. When you were talking about how you want it to be something where you're giving, I think that's a very, very apparent thing about your style of teaching as well. The, uh, I feel like your style of teaching is super generous. So the classes I've been to, or the classes I've watched, you teach, you're very into the details, and you're very into making sure that your students are with you, like engaged, listening,
Right.
understanding. If they have questions, please ask questions. And then as you walk around the room to make sure everybody's drilling it properly, I feel like you're really attentive to what the needs are of each of those students, right? You have students that are taller than you, bigger than
Absolutely.
you, and different athletic, abilities. And I like how you really do seem like you're not okay. So like if your jujitsu is in a pitcher, you're pouring it all out. You're not like
Yeah.
leaving some in there, like you're not
No.
saving some.
Yeah.
It's like you just kind of go, here, it's for all of you. I want my pitcher
Right.
to be empty and distributed. And that's one of the cool things about jujitsu, is that it's kind of endless. You as an instructor, what techniques work for you and what techniques work in general that are high percentage, but it's always evolving.
Right.
And that's how, I think you can be so generous as a teacher, as an instructor, because you're still continuing your learning. You're modifying things that you learned, even 5, 6 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so you can have that level of generosity because there's still something always coming back to you in the process as
Right.
well, especially now at Studio
Right.
540 with so many black belts and so many high level people that come from different
Right.
from a different lineage. But yeah, I
No,
think that,
I'm really glad that you say that um, that you see that in my teaching. That is
yeah.
something that I do. I love to just give it all to my
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, and I say my people. Everybody are my people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the mama bear has come around in a different light where it's like, no, I want to take care of all of you. I'm
Love it.
going to give myself to you, in any way that I can, because I want us all to get better together.
Yes.
And what's wonderful about it is, if I don't hold back and I give you everything, you're going to take it and you're going to make it yours. And
Right.
then I get to learn from that.
Right. Right.
When I have a taller person in my class that says, well, wait, I'm having troubles doing this because my leg is as long as you are tall. I have to stop and think about things and be
Sure.
like, okay, so how
Mm-hmm.
do we make this work for you?
Right.
Like that
Right.
helps me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been teaching a lot of the same things for years.
Yeah.
And I have, I love being able to, even though maybe the technique does not necessarily change, but how I convey it will.
Sure.
I've, taught the sit-up sweep for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't teach it the same as I had done 10 years ago.
Right.
And,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
because of what I've gotten from my students.
Mm-hmm.
I notice certain things work for them. I notice
Mm.
things about my own jujitsu
Yeah.
as I teach,
Right. Yeah.
so it's been incredibly gratifying that way and rewarding to be able to not only, we are, well, 100% all of us are learning together. I'm learning while I'm teaching. I'm learning from you guys. You guys are learning from me. And I think that I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a
For
really
sure.
nice cycle of learning where it's collaborative. We add to
Oh
each
yeah.
other and we
Yeah.
ask questions that make each other think deeper on
For
that
sure. Oh
topic.
yeah.
And
People will ask me a question. I'll be like, okay, hold on. Let me think about it for a second. Let me do it a couple of times. Let me
yeah,
see it.
yeah,
I can't give you an answer right now. And then I'll think about it some more. And I'll be like, okay, I gave you an answer in class, but here's more.
yes,
Because I got to think about it.
yeah.
So.
Well, Jess, it has been an honor to know you, to learn from you, to train
Well,
with
thank
you over
you.
the last few years. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to getting back to the gym once this
Holy
whole
cow.
coronavirus
Yeah.
thing blows over and we can be within 6 feet of each other again. And
Yeah.
yeah, so but I want to say thank you for talking with me today. I know that there's probably hours more worth of stories, so maybe we'll
For
have to do
sure.
another session another time, but
Anytime.
hopefully somebody out there has learned something valuable from this conversation. But thank
Well,
you
I
for your
hope so.
time today.
Gosh, thank you so much. This was really fun, Leon. I appreciate everything that you do around Studio 540 for us.
Well, thank
You're
you
an
so much.
excellent addition.
Thank you, Jess. All right, well, you take care. Be safe out there. All right.
Thank you. You as well.
All right, talk
All
to you
right.
later.